Hey guys, welcome back. Let's do some more sculpting. I was doing some hard surface work for my professional work. So it's a little refreshing to do a little sculpture, you know. What happened here? It seems like my ZBrush just froze. That's weird. Good thing that I just saved it. So let me just see if I can unfreeze it. No, it's back. Oh, thank you, ZBrush. All right, cool. Get back to this. Yeah. All right, like a little clay color in there. So I had like all those pores like all messed up in the forehead. So just to show you guys what I did in here. So I had like all those spaces, right? Because I created the, oh, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen just yet. Sorry, right there. So you can see it now, right? Okay. So yeah, I had like they had like some gaps in between them and everything. And I tried to fill up those gaps around there, but then I still had that problem with the pores being too deep, right? So there are two ways to approach here that I mentioned. One would be, for example, like going to the lowest res and then smoothing everything out. And then when you go to the highest, things look a little bit more even, right? So I did that as a first pass. And then I got something that looked a little bit deeper than this, but at least was more even. So just like to remove some of the extra bumps, sometimes you get some overlapping between the arrays of pores. And then, so I got that. And so I did that as a first pass, and then I saved a morph target right here, right? And then I went back, one subdivision, smooth it out, everything, went up again, smooth it out until it got completely, clean. And then I did that trick with the morph brush to bring them back just the amount I wanted. So right now it looks a little bit more even. And then on top of that, I start adding that this little brush that we built the other day, the skin random in here with the elastic. So just like doing passes side to side like this, just to add some of this directionality. And then when I get around here, I'm gonna do it strong here so you can see. So when I get around this area, I tend to go in kind of like in a curvature like that, right? And then when I get to the eyes, I kind of go the opposite way, like starting from here and up and then towards the side of the eyes. So I'm doing this, but with a very low intensity, obviously, just to have some of that effect, but without being too dramatic. Because like I said, I'm concerned about the amount of detail in this guy. So I'm gonna go kind of take it easy, you know, it's like in slow. And then obviously after I have all those little micro details in place, then it's time to do some actual wrinkles, right? Like in place something a little bit more, like more evident. So when I get to this area around here, you see like I still have some inconsistent stuff. So I'm gonna start actually doing some more of those, adding more pores in here and making them a little bit deeper. So I'm just gonna do this, just add some directionality around here again. Like this, kind of like just get to go up and then more towards the nose in here. So I'm gonna turn off my symmetry now. A little bit more of that I did the other day, just to close that gap. And then around here, now that I'm using like a much lower intensity, I have to match it. So I'm gonna get my single pore and then make sure I have an intensity that's not too aggressive here. Maybe like around 30 in my case. In your case, probably gonna be different. So maybe a little bit less, so 28, so 27, something like that. And then I'm gonna break up those little in-betweens here. I did a lot of this in this area around here because they are looking a little bit too spread out before. And then that's the good thing about like having them too spread out is that you have space to add some in-betweens, right? If you make them too tiny, then it's a complete redo because there's no way for you to expand that. But if you make them too big, then it's a good, easy way to just go there. I was like, okay, I'm gonna add some more density to it. So you go and kind of like add some more in-betweens and then you can get, so I did a lot in this area here just to get more pores in there. And then I think they kind of look a little deep in here. Looks like they're very visible, but in fact, when you look at the render, and I did this render yesterday, where is it, this one? So just like, to test, but I mean, like, it's not like the latest or anything, but you can barely see them. Obviously, I don't have like a nice specular yet, just like showing them. And even my anti-alias here, maybe I can make a little bit more precise, you know, so you cannot see much of it. So that means like it's not super deep. And those ones in the forehead, which I thought was super deep, they're kind of nice in there. So at the end of the day, what you can do, if I go, for example, too soft with everything overall, I can tweak this parameter here. I can show you. So remember when you go to the object and you press Control A to go to the attributes, right? Remember that the second tab under Arnold, you have like your displacement attributes in here, like subdivisions, right, and everything. And down here you have the displacement attributes. So if you want to kind of like over crank your displacement, for example, you use like, you know, it's like it's too soft, you can always play with this, you know, you can add like, for example, instead of 1, I could use like 1.3. So I would get like a 30% gain in my displacement, right? Or if it's too deep, you can actually use less, for example, 0.7, 70% of the original. So you can actually play with that. You don't need to play with anything else. This is just like to control the depth of the displacement. So yeah, that's a good way to cheat, right? But I always try to do things in ZBrush, so I have control of what I need to do, right? At this point here, I don't have a lot of direction just yet for those pores, but I'm starting to add some of those micro ones in there, right? So slowly I'm gonna be building more and more of those guys, putting like some more in betweens, you know, until I'm happy with the density overall. So I'm gonna add some more of that, and obviously I'm gonna be adding like some more custom wrinkles here and there. We're gonna be sculpting some of the lips today. He is kind of like not the greatest subject to demonstrate like lips, because he's smiling, and then when you're smiling, there is a tension. And if you look at yourself in the mirror smiling, right, your lips gonna press against your gums under like the lower lips, and then they're gonna get like very, very smooth overall. You know, it's like all the little wrinkles and everything you normally have in a relaxed lip, you're gonna end up like having like a shiny one, right? So that's why look at him like smiling right there. You're gonna have a lot of shininess in there. It's very tight, right? Like kind of like same with them, right? He's smiling, kind of like it smooths out all those wrinkles in the lips. But I mean, like I'm gonna be sculpting and demonstrating those. And you always have like the previous classes you can refer to, like if you want to see, for example, like some more complex sculpture of the lips. But I'm gonna try to do maybe like I can sculpt them the way I would sculpt, since this can be like a class that someone is gonna buy, you know, later as a pre-recorded thing. And then if I just mention something, oh, check the previous one, like, oh, I'm gonna have to buy another one, you know. So I can actually demonstrate how to do it here and then just like dial back, just like I did with the pores, you know. And I'm gonna end up doing this as well with the hair, because I want to make sure I'm teaching you the hair. But then obviously he has quite a little bit of hair, right? Like it's just like he has this alopecia, right? Like it's kind of, you know, the hair falls in this kind of like a condition. So, but I'm gonna put it like making him like very hairy first, show you the parameters. We can play a little bit with that, make a little joke about like him with the wig, and then we can actually go back and remove most of that, just like I'm doing with the pores right now. I need to show you guys because, you know, you're gonna be doing like any kind of character at this point, right? Like I know some of you guys are doing similar guys with the same condition, which is really cool. But some of you are gonna go like maybe like for a monster or for like a woman, or, you know, it's like an old man or something. And then we have to be make sure that we are covering the techniques to be able to do that, and at the same time be able to create my own character. So we're gonna be trying to cover all of that. So for the eyes here, I'm doing that same thing, you know, it's like trying to slowly just build some of those like little wrinkles in here and there. I kind of like, I stopped doing the little bumps. I have to do the other side still, but I'm just trying to, you know, it's like it's kind of like you have to fill up this gap here. At this point, I have the pores and I have those micro wrinkles. So I have to start actually drawing some of them, starting from the pores right here, for example, and then blending into the little ones. So they start with the pores right there. So kind of like, you know, connect some dots, like I said, get some pores and connect them. And again, I cannot go too crazy with the depth, right? Otherwise it's gonna look super wrinkly and old. And I just need him to look like slightly old skin-wise, but then older when it comes like to the features and everything. So we're just gonna connect some of those, and then slowly build those little micro wrinkles in there. So you see like it's a transition between something that's very tiny to something that's like the pores are much more visible, obviously. And then I have to find a way to actually blend those two areas. And I do that by using those wrinkles a little bit bigger like this. And it's gonna be a similar approach to the lips as well. We're gonna be doing the lips the same way. So we're gonna be transitioning between like the porous areas and then those stretched lips, right? So let's do this, like zigzag here. And then from here, then I can actually pull some of them and help me to create this transition between those areas. There's a lot more work that's gonna go into those areas. It's just like, it's the kind of stuff like I said about music, right? You're gonna get lost doing that kind of stuff, like especially like if you're not talking to the audience, right? You're gonna be just like in the zone, just doing your thing in there. So a lot's gonna come from that. And then let's just go back here. Let's take a look at the lips area. And then obviously like my primary and secondary forms here are not very good at this point. They're not super well defined. I'm just gonna go back here in resolution a few times. I'm just gonna try to incorporate a little bit more form to this. I normally tend to do this. I add a little line. So I dig a little line right here. Create the separation between what's the lip and then what's the edge of the lip right there, right? And then there's a tiny little bulge. In this area here, I'm gonna have to have more of a bulge as well. The actual character has a little bit more of volume in there, so I'm gonna have to do this. But just by adding this little line to separate the two of them, the lips themselves from the edge of the lips, which have like a different type of character to them, right? Like if you look at your lips, you're gonna have like this super thin type of skin, easy to break, right? Like it's easy to get chapped and bleed. And then you're gonna have this edge here, which is basically like the skin, right? And then this the normal skin. And then you have the coloring that changes as well. I mean, like if you do something like a smile like that, you're probably gonna be able to observe a change in color. So this edge around here is gonna get a little bit wider, right? Because it's kind of like there's all that firmer kind of tissue underneath, and also the blood flowing to different areas, right? Like it kind of like strangles it a little bit. So you get this little paler version there. We're gonna be talking about this a lot on Monday because we're gonna be painting some albedo. Gonna start painting some textures. We just looked at a few textures yesterday, but the texture is gonna come for good next week. And then the eyes, right? We're gonna be talking about eyes and texturing the eyes and sculpting and all that stuff. So I'm gonna just split in here. And then normally like for the lips, I tend to sculpt like if they are like the neutral position, right? By default, I mean, like you're gonna have like a couple of different volumes. You're gonna have like one volume underneath, like in each side. So you're gonna have like two volumes like that. And the upper part, you're gonna have like one center volume right here, and then two extra ones on the sides. Oops. So you're gonna have like 3 at the top and then 2 at the bottom, right? But in his case here, because everything is trashed, everything is gonna be a little bit more discreet, right? A little bit more subtle. So I'm gonna still build a little bit of that in the top lip in here. Let's see if it's good in terms of like it's against the teeth enough, I guess. So I'm just gonna build up a little bit of that, a mention of that little volume right here in the middle. And then just to have a little bit of that, I'm gonna bring this volume here of the edge a little bit forward, which is gonna give him a little bit of more of this chiseled kind of, edge for the lips. So probably like when the light hits it, it's gonna look more like thin lips. Just gonna do that. Bring it a little bit down here. And make sure I have that separation that I'm building in right there, right? So I'm gonna have like the edge and then a little bit of a divot right here. just a little bit. I'm gonna build up this one a little bit, smooth it out. And then add some more volume, maybe right here. Make sure that's consistent with teeth as well. If you want to be really good about it, like in terms of keeping things consistent, you would, for example, like add the pressure from the teeth to the lips themselves. But the thing is, like, I don't know if my teeth is in the correct position just yet. I'm gonna have to do a bunch of renders to see how they are. And if they are, if they need to go back, it makes no sense for me to sculpt like a pressure in here. But if you're sculpting pressure, you would use a similar technique. So the clay build up with a little round alpha like that, you would just like go right here against the teeth and then build up that little pressure, right? Like to have a little bit of that. You could do something similar to that, you know? But in this case, like I said, I can add maybe a tiny bit just as a reference, but I have to check first the position of the teeth if it's gonna make sense to keep it in there. I'm just gonna go back here, and then I can even create a little bit of a split between those three forms. So I'm gonna, but not by much. I mean, because it's trashed with the tension of the smile. In that case, I'm not gonna sculpt like too visible. Let's get this one, keep going with this little line around. All the way around there with the clay build up, like a negative version of it. Yeah, I rather, let's see, if it's a little bit wobbly, I don't like it. I'm gonna do a little, just to smooth it out again and do it again. Because I want a line that's a little bit cleaner. Let's try to go in a single scoop like that. There you go, that's better. And then let's build up this area here a little bit. They still have to be flatter, like I said, right? It's just if it's tense, it has to be flatter overall, not a lot of volume. The volume is basically being deflated by the pull from both sides. So, you know, if you look from here now, a little bit of that volume, which I can actually build even more. But let's see, I'm gonna try to use the build up here. It's gonna try to counter the pores, but because I'm such a low resolution for the model, I think the pores should adapt okay in there. So I'm gonna build up a little bit more of that lip, that little edge around here to make sure that's a little bit more visible. Then we can actually put a little bit of the filtrum here and make it appear a tiny bit, not by much, right? You have like your filtrum that's supposed to be like something deeper, right? But in this case here, let's just use the regular elastic brush. And I'm gonna just add one brush here with elastic. Let's do maybe like 37. And then same deal, instead of like doing that 87, which is like the default amount, right? And do that crazy thing back and forth like that. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just do this, like go from top to bottom and then top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom, you know, many times, but with a very low intensity. So let's do like 20 something. I'm just gonna do that just to create a little bit of the filtrum right there without destroying the forms that I have underneath, right? So it just adds a little bit of that. And then I can even score it by using the positive version right at the corner here, just so the light hits it and looks nicer in there, right? So a little bit like that. And then I can do the same, use the same brush if I want to, just to build up the edge in here. I have to be careful with intensity, otherwise it gets a little bit too strong. So you see, like at this point here, I'm using like a lower resolution for the mesh, so it doesn't quite matter that much, you know. It's like the details I'm actually erasing in there. You're gonna see when I go back in resolution, if I'm smoothing out a lot of those pores, obviously they're gonna look a little bit shallower when I go back to the higher levels. But in terms of the detail, their character is still gonna be there. So just having a tiny little bit of that. Sometimes I exaggerate this effect in here. So for example, depending on the character, sometimes I have something like, let me just sculpt here for you to see. you see now I have like, let me do like very exaggerated so you can see. So you see I have the field trimming here, and I have this little line. So sometimes I actually exaggerate. I split that, you know, and then I actually build up this area more. But obviously it has to be done with a very, you know, kind of subtle way. So I'm gonna do a little bit of that. I'm gonna do a little bit of that split in here and build up some of this volume, but I cannot do much in terms of building up. There are a couple of additional forms I wanna add right here in the corners. So for example, here, I'm gonna build up this little corner right here, but not by much. I wanna keep it a little bit shallow, but I'm gonna split it from the rest. So for example, like I'm gonna do strong here so you can see. Basically like splitting this part of the muzzle from that little piece on the side, right? And then sometimes what happens too, you can get like a little bit of a tension coming. You see like I have that muscle right there, right? Zygomatic muscle. I have just a little mention of it right there, very discreet. And it's pulling all the way to the side. So sometimes you get a little bit of this volume built up right there on the side, and it comes all the way from there, right? And then sometimes it's a little bit higher. You have like not just one muscle, but sometimes you get a little bit more of this double volume. So there's a split right there, right? You get like something like that. But in his case, I'm gonna just like try to keep it discreet. And then, I mean, like if it's a creature, like something it has to be like, you know, ugly and intimidating and all this stuff, you normally want to make sure that you're sculpting like strong, you know, everything, right? Like everything has to be super well defined and scary and all that stuff. But when you're sculpting humans, and especially like if you're trying to make like the forms look natural, it's almost like the form is there, but it's not, you know, it's like, it's just like your eye can catch a glimpse of it, but it's not too evident, you know? It's like, it's almost like the person looking kind of second guesses if the form is even there. You know, it's like it is, because it's kind of like, but it's buried behind like some of the other layers, you know? It's like, it's, you know, we have a bunch of other things going on, like in secondary forms, like they're kind of mixing with it. So it's kind of nice to just have those forms to be like very discreet, but present, right? They cannot be invisible. Otherwise, the character looks very simple. It doesn't look complex enough. So I was saying like that this area here has more volume. So I'm gonna be building this volume right around here, under his lips right there. Right there. And you can tell that I'm using my clay build up, right? Like if you wanna make sure that the pores are not destroyed at all, then you do with the elastic brush, going always like one direction to you know, to another without going back and forth like a zigzag. It's just like one to another, always the same. And then, but in this case here, like I said, the pores should be discrete enough at this resolution that it's not going to affect too much if I go higher here at this point. It's going to build up. So I'm just like working in this area a little bit before you go to the lips and do some of the wrinkles, but just getting a little bit more of like an organic feel to it. Now for this edging here that I just built, it looks a little bit too visible, right? So I like this internal one here. I'm gonna make it a little bit smoother, but then this external one, I'm gonna make a little bit thicker. It looks a little bit thin. I'm just gonna make things a little bit thicker and then smooth it out. So I have that. And the lips can be tricky as well in terms of angle, you know. Sometimes you think like the lips have the right forms, but you're looking from the front like that. But then from the profile, it's almost like you have to have enough of like, it's almost like a 45-degree, you know, angle in there. Sometimes if you're having trouble with it, like getting the correct angle, it's worth like doing, for example, some line, kind of like you do like a positive one, like let's do it stronger, but something like this, that you split the top like that, right? And then this is the area that you have to make more flat. So you normally like you first you mark an area, and then you can come with age polish, for example. Right, and age polish is good to just like trim, kind of like make sure that that line reads very, very, you know, flat. But then obviously you're gonna do, you know, with a lower intensity. Let's try with 7. I'm just gonna mark it. First, it's gonna look a little bit square first, just to define that plane better. So it's not fighting anything else. And then we're gonna start like smoothing it out again. You see, like when I do this, now I can see around this area here that things are kind of like coming in and out in a kind of like disorganized way. So this area here needs to come forward a little bit. So it's easier for me to see when I establish like those planes again, that certain things have to come forward to compensate for that. And then once you have everything established again, then you can do like a generally smooth, you know, just like to even things out, and then remove that straight line, you know, pinched right in the middle. It's kind of like just like reestablishing the planes for that angle for the lips in here. So it doesn't look like those forms are kind of like getting all weird. But let me just smooth all the way, and I'm gonna just rebuild that little line. Still looks a little bit. Let's just go around here and really get this down right there. It doesn't seem like something important, you know, it's like when you talk about it like that, but once you have in a scene with the HDRI maps and everything, all of a sudden, like you're gonna see that those areas that are not catching the reflections the way you would expect to do, just because the angles are incorrect, you know, it's like, so you're gonna see like, instead of like reflecting like from the top, it's gonna reflect more to this from the side, you know. So yeah, it's just like making sure that this is kind of like an even surface from all angles. Build up in here and smooth it out again. Now I'm gonna just like redraw that line. Let's try with the carve brush here. Let's start with the side right there. Let's do this. And then I'm gonna do a tiny little bit of smooth after that. Let's do that. Let's go right here, which is too much. Certain angles are weird to get with the tablet like that. Let's try that, and then do smooth. And a little bit more of the clay build up just to cover it. Oops, it's too much. This is tricky to control, but it's good. We're gonna just like start those little wrinkles, and then I can come back and do a little bit more. Should be okay. Let's see. Yeah, it could definitely have more volume in certain areas here, but let's see around here. You can only see certain things when you change angle, right? Like you start seeing like things are missing volume. Let's do that. Yeah, a little bit more here as well. Okay, and then let's do some detail, and then later I can come back and do some more work in this. Otherwise, I'm going to be fighting these little lines in there. But for now, it should be okay-ish. So we're going to switch back to the higher res in here. Let's go back here a couple of times. And his smile there is interesting because it's a little bit wider than what I have in here. I can, you know, either tweak this in the lowest res, but even from here, I'm gonna just pull this a little bit out. And then let's see how, like, I think this area opens up a little bit as well, like that. Just like looking at the likeness a little bit. And down, then that gets a little squarer. Now here, this gets a little squarer too in his mouth. I'm gonna pull it up slightly. Always with a soft brush, right? Like without pulling things too dramatically, because you don't wanna destroy any of the detail you're adding in there. Let's get this a little bit wider around here. Even the internal part seems a little wider, so I'm just gonna pull this out around here. We already had some fight with that area, but later on I'm gonna have to go inside and actually tweak what's going on with this from the inside. And now I'm fighting because like the inside of the mouth is completely locked because I went HD just outside. So if I start pulling too much, I'm going to start causing a lot of artifacts in there. So I'm not going to be doing a lot. So just a little bit of the tweaking there. And then let's take a look at the lips now. So for the lips, normally I sculpt those little lines in the edges first. So you see I have some of them in here, but those little lines are actually accidental. They're coming from that pass that we did, you know, it's like to get like this direction going on with the chin. So some of them just leaked over there and I left because they are useful, you know, just keep them in there. But normally if I have the mouth completely symmetrical, it's easier for me to just sculpt them symmetrically, right? I get a lot of stuff done and just do asymmetrically in the center. But in this case here, the mouth is completely asymmetrical, so it's gonna be a little tricky and I have to do twice. So since I suggested to some of you guys to do this, I'm gonna do this myself. I'm gonna get out of HD, I'm gonna show you how I normally would approach that. So let's make a symmetrical version of this guy. So if I go to the, let's see, yeah, let's save maybe like at 277, at 69. So like subdivision level 2, that's the one we are sending to Maya. That's basically what I'm gonna export here. I'm gonna export this one as my main little model in there. Actually, let's do a at subdivision level. Yeah, I'm afraid that if I do two, like if I do around here, some of those wrinkles gonna get symmetrical. You might introduce some artifacts. I think it's gonna be okay. Let's just export that instead of like the lower res, the second lowest. So let's do export, and I'm gonna just call it base mesh. So asymmetrical, and then it's gonna be 1. And then let's see what happens here with the topology when I try to do in ZBrush, because remember ZBrush sometimes breaks that center line. So I hope it's not going to do this. And ZBrush sometimes is a little tricky to create that symmetry here, right? But let's see what happens. So it's marked to resim. Yeah, it worked. So now I have both sides symmetrical. Let's see the center line. It looks okay. Yeah, that would work. So now I can go back to my HD using a symmetrical model, right? Which is like symmetrical partially, right? You see like those bigger wrinkles are big just in this side here, right? Because this is like, when I did the symmetry, it was in a subdivision level that's a little bit lower than this. But for the overall look of the lips, it should work. And that's basically what I'm looking for. I don't want to destroy those wrinkles in one side because I want to build the wrinkles asymmetrically later. But at the same time, I want to be able to sculpt the lips symmetrically. So I think that should work. Let's go into HD again, right? So now I have a symmetrical mouth. So I can actually do like a, you know, it's like a save me some time just sculpting stuff. But again, you know, always optional to you guys. It's just like, I think it's the smart thing to do is to actually save time because it's a lot of handmade detail. So let's do this. I'm gonna use like my trusty carve brush, which we already repeated a couple of times how I make it. And then you can always use like the damn stand or whatever you want to do. I should rename this onto damn sun standard, you know? That would be like my custom name. And then, so around this area here, right at the edge, I'm gonna create like those little micro wrinkles. You're gonna see, for example, if you zoom in any of those references you're looking before. Let's get it here. Let's see, right there. That's like some of you guys are modeling this little guy, which is cool. So around here, if you go to this reference of this guy, you're gonna see like those little lines in there, and then down here as well. I'm gonna try to reproduce some of that. You know, it's like this little. You know, they're gonna be kind of little, and they're gonna blend into bigger and bigger forms, and then we're gonna introduce some of those horizontal and diagonal ones as well. Just gonna keep on the side in here. So like you're gonna start with the lower part. Let me make sure that everything is symmetrical right there, right? And then let's see around here, I can start down and up, down and up, and trying to actually introduce a little bit more uh, diagonal sometimes, you know, it's like instead of like that repetitive pattern that I mentioned before, you change a little bit the angle and the length of it, and then you're gonna get more and more of those built into kind of like a more natural flow, right? And then obviously when we get closer to the pores in here, then you can start playing with that connect the dots game, right? So we just go catch a couple of them in here, and then you run with it, you know, just like make sure you introduce a little bit of that connection between them. So, and then I go back, up, and down. And at this point, we are sculpting both sides. So that's good. We are saving some of that time. Let's get, make sure that you have them like, you know, deep enough. So at 11 here, I'm getting some depth so I can actually see them. Because remember, like with subsurface scattering, all this stuff fades away quite a lot. So we need to be able to see them, right? But at the same time, they have to work higher with the hierarchy, you know, in a way that actually blends with those surrounding areas in here without being too aggressive, right? You're not going to do something like, you know, like something like that, right? That's going to completely break everything. You're going to make sure that it's part of that same universe in there. So if I have like, let's say 14, something like that, then, you know, just like back and forth. So making sure that from time to time you escape that little pattern and you kind of like connect to some of those pores around it. And that's going to be the deal around the whole thing, around the lips. You're going to switch here. Let's see, when I get like, I'm doing this symmetrically right now, right? It's going to save me quite a lot of time. But then when I get to the center here, then obviously just like break the symmetry. Let's see where the symmetry ends right here. And then I'm going to, let's smooth that out a little bit to remove it. And then let's do the same thing here. So go, let's blend the top of it and then go around here. And then again, like you're gonna do some of them until like a safe area where the eye probably not gonna be able to detect if it's symmetrical or not anymore. So something around, maybe around here, let's see. And then let's see, let's go back around, maybe around here. And then blend the top of them so they can actually blend with the lips. Remember, there's going to have the tension in there. And even if it's not, you know, it's like you definitely blend with the lips. In this case here, if you had like lips that they were not like stretched like the ones I have in here, you would probably continue with those lines, kind of like this. And then, you know, a couple of them, you would just like invade that space right there, like that. Let's do a couple of them like this, and then I can just smooth it out. So just like, you know, I can from time to time just, you can actually break up some of them like that. You see like some of them are thicker, some of them are thinner, some of them end short, some of them go further. So the worst thing you can do is to actually have patterns like that, you know, that go like all the way the same distance and everything. But if you have something that it has variation enough, that can really help to create an illusion, you know. Now, once you have that established, and you see like I'm not using my, how you call like the lazy mouse, because I'm afraid it's gonna screw up the model, right? Like with that bug that I mentioned. So I'm just like not using it. But then I wish I could use it here because it would be so nice to have more control over those lines. But at this point here, let's just like do a little bit of connected dots in here. And then let's switch to symmetry again. So the symmetry starts again around here. But from this point, I can just go back to my business and keep doing this all the way around, right? And then again, like if the lips are not compressed like that, what I would do, I would mark those lines first, like I have in here, like mark them, the position and everything, and then use a clay buildup with a round brush plugged to it. And then I would build up the in-betweens, like just to add a little bit of this organic feel to each one of them, right? So be building something like this. It can be very discreet. From time to time, you can have like bigger folds, especially right in the middle, right? Like when you have something right around here, if you had that little, either like a single form in here or two little forms coming from the sides, for example, like something like this, just demonstrating here, then you probably would use like a little bit more of a deeper kind of carving to it, add some more interesting forms in there, and then always like breaking them up and breaking the profile, you know. So from here, basically, like they would start to change direction. It would start probably like going more towards kind of like that, you know, all the way around. And then we're going to introduce as well like some horizontal ones. So you would start adding, for example, like some of them crossing that way. Oops. Right. And then from time to time, even some diagonals that would cross close to the edge in there. A little bit more, you know, it's like more random, right? But the important thing is like rhythm, right? Like you add like a thick one like that, and you come with a little smaller one. Then you start from the bottom instead, right? And then you start from the top again, and then a little thinner. Things like that, you know, so just to add rhythm to it, to prevent this kind of like pattern placement. So let's do this. Let's go back. See like this line here in the bottom lip, how weird it looks, like there's a peak in there. So from this angle, I can actually take a look and try to fix that. But it's the kind of stuff like the more you look, the more you're going to be finding stuff. For example, the nasolabial line, you see like this side here is not very sharp just yet. So it's kind of like not very convincing. And the thing that I found that's the best for like nasolabial folds is to actually sculpt from within, from the inside of the model, just like I did the other day, you know, to show you the wrinkles sculpting from inside. That's I think like the best way, you know. So let's just undo this stuff that I'm doing just temporarily to show you, and let's just go to do a quick demo in this nasolabial fold. So right now it looks like this, right? It's kind of like soft in there. It's not very convincing. So I can just go, and I have to fix this as well. It happened here because I was correcting that, making it a little bit squarer from this angle, but then from the bottom looked like it created this weird bump right there. So yeah, I'm just tweak it a little bit. Just bring this line here in a little bit and make things a little bit more round and convincing. So let's just make sure we have a nice curvature from all angles here. And coming towards the end. Let's see if that's working better. And then down. I'm working like a higher res in here, but I mean, it's the kind of stuff I should be working in a lower res, like my secondary and primaries. But it should work fine. Let's see. I'm gonna definitely smooth this internal part with a little bit of a stronger brush right around there, just to get that line covered. There you go. I like things like to look, you know, it's like nice and smooth, and just to prevent like weirdness happening with the surface. And then let's just remodel that one. I just erased a little bit, so let's just add this little line a little bit again. And then let's switch to the nasolabial stuff. Let's do that, and then go back up. There you go. And then let's do that, and then we'll go back to the lips and continue. Just want to open a parenthesis here and just show that. So at this point here, I'm in HD, right? So everything that's HD, oh, look, man, there's something I did right there. I created some artifact in there. I think it was with the accidental move brush that I did before, which sucks. It shouldn't be too bad because once I bring my model again, the asymmetrical version, it should be better, but yeah, it kind of sucks right there. Yeah, talking about that, I shouldn't be changing too much like this, this stuff like the nasolabial, because if I'm bringing that model back, and I'm changing all those forms in here. I just changed those forms just now. I realized, you know, that form probably was there because of the model that I just made symmetrical, and I didn't even realize that. So yeah, I'm not gonna be messing up with this with the forms in here. Probably when I bring the asymmetrical version, that mouth is gonna look better. It's just because, yeah, I did something there. Yeah, I didn't even realize, man. Sorry, but let me just switch back to this. So I have like the model. This light area is the HD, and this is the non-HD. So I'm gonna just use the solo button here just to make sure that I'm seeing just one side, so I can see the shell. And then I'm gonna go inside and model that nasolabial fold. So right now I'm more interested in this side here. I'm gonna switch to my carve brush, and then I'm gonna go around here and go right around this edge. And then let's see, like not at the highest level, I'm at 8 million polygons now. Let's try 2 million. And then let's do like a Z add. And then I'm gonna start the line a little bit too strong. Let's see, 6 or 7. Start a little bit like this, not too strong. And then I'm gonna start building up and making it sharper and sharper. Yep, and then make the brush a little bit bigger. Make sure that I have right at this peak, right, of the peak of the mountain in there. And then like that. So now when I look from here, it starts to look more of, you know, a little bit more tight. So a little tighter in there. And then I can always use a little inflate just to get things a little closer. Or I can just go and then use like, let's do like with, I can bring the intensity down to like 2. And I'm just gonna start sculpting this area here to bring it, puff it out a little bit, because I wanna make sure that this peak is actually more, more dramatic, right? You can see it better. Let's see from here, let's pull it even further so I can get it deeper when you look from the other side. Even here, you know, it's like, see like that depth in here. It would be nice if I just like carved it in here to actually get a little bit sharper overall. So make a little bit more of like a little bit of a balloon in there. And then this balloon ending in this, this very sharp line. Then if I see a line like this, I can do the same, right? Something like that. So that's the kind of stuff, you know, it's like that you can do. Obviously, I'm probably gonna have to do it again because I'm gonna re-import my base mesh and it's gonna be different. But yeah, this kind of stuff, you know, here I would probably like build up this area to look a little bit more round as well. So it looks like it's semi-covering that, the cavity in there, instead of like, you know, something that's actually almost like folding over it. Yeah, something like that. So it starts to look a little bit more organic, you know, overall. But then again, with those guys, I mean, like I've seen their skin, you know, it's like, this is kind of like what you do with like a general kind of skin. But then in their case, I mean, like the skin is super thin. So I have to be careful with that because it's more likely going to have to flatten this whole area here to look a little bit, you know, not so puffy. See, like I have like, it's kind of like this, kind of like this profile that looks like that. There's a kind of like a, you know, it's pretty puffy, right? But in their case, I probably would have to do something about like flattening this whole area further, you know, to remove some of that. But I'm gonna have to do this later. So now that I got distracted and I distracted all of you, now let's go back to the lips, because that's the only thing I should be doing instead of changing the major forms, because otherwise I'm gonna have to redo everything, right? So let's go back to what's interesting here. Let's go back to the lips. So symmetry on again, so I can save myself some time. And then for the lips, let's go to the top ones now. The top ones, I'm gonna start by doing the same stuff. Let's do like intensity at 12, 13, something like that. And man, it's getting hotter here. That's weird. I don't think the air conditioner kicked in today. Let's see. I think it's age, you know. I think that's the problem. I'm getting old, getting the hots, man. There you go. So we're gonna start like by kind of like, instead of like, I'm gonna add a little bit of an angle, you know, but not too much. So basically like a little bit of an angle, and I start going almost like trying to respect the angle of the lip itself. So basically I'm gonna start very, very vertically right in the middle in here. So something like if I'm around here, let's do some of that. Going and mixing with those little guys. And probably like add some more pores in there right at the edge as well. But you know, kind of like, let's just do this. So it starts more vertical right here. And then it starts like, kind of like a fan, right? Kind of fanny and tapering. And then I'm just gonna switch to my symmetry again. And let's do some more of that. So it's slightly just like starting to angle it. So again, like I can just add like a single one line right in the middle. Another one a little bit thicker. Another one like that. But if I do too many of those, instead of like having this impression that the lips are actually tight and they smile, it's gonna look like they are dry, you know, it's like they're not gonna look very convincing. So I have to be careful about how deep I go in this type of facial expression. But just enough in here, let's try. So I'm gonna do it kind of faster here, so just we save some time. And then I come with the, and add some hero ones in between. But for now, I just wanna cover this area fast. So let's see if I get some of those pores mix in. This is the kind of like tiny detail that you think is not gonna show up, you know, and sure enough, like depending on the render, you can see it. Let's see if I can, let's take a look at this, if I have a higher res for, let's see, control this for this one, let's try this. Oh, sorry. Projects, let's do this one. And images. Let's see if I render a higher res version of it. Let's see, sort by date. That's the banner. Let's see. This might be a little higher res, but then, okay, this is, it's not super high res, but it's high res enough, like 1500. Let's see if we can see it. Yeah, it's gonna be hard to see. See a little bit of it, you know, not much, but I think probably like this close up here. Yeah, I'm gonna see some more. It's a little strong, but I mean like this kind of stuff right here, you know, it's like kind of like in the glancing angle, then you can start seeing them peeking through, you know. So that's basically what I'm looking for, you know, like some of them, they have to be deep enough so we can see them when the light hits. Obviously she has a lip gloss in here, and then in that case, you're gonna get some of that, that stuff to actually reflect a little bit more. But if it was just like the skin without makeup, you would barely see. It would be more like those little micro wrinkles right here in the, you know, the cheeks. So that's, yeah, that's basically like the intention right there. But since I'm just covering this area here, I'm gonna have to actually add some more depth in some of them and make some deeper ones. But for now, it's just like just blocking those smaller ones first. I'm gonna try to go fast, like I said. Trying to not do too much of parallel lines, like no parallel lines, just everything is a little bit diagonal in relation to each other. And then here I start angling a little bit more. And I can definitely use some more pores around this area to help with the blending. Okay, so we should be good just to cover that area. And then we have enough around there. Let's see. Now we can pick a few ones, and I'm gonna turn off my symmetry now. And then I'm just gonna go like and create some hero ones, like starting from the pores and coming down a little bit stronger. So from time to time, like open some space and then do it again. And then if I need to add more pores, same thing, like just make sure that the pores are actually, they have the same type of depth, right? So around here, I can start actually adding some more to help with this area. So basically, like I see that they're kind of spread out. And I want to make sure, let me just like switch back to my symmetry here so I can save my some more time again. And then just like make sure that I have enough one supporting that area. And then from time to time, you can go lower, higher, but not like, don't go too much within the, you know, the space of the lips, right? Like you kind of respect that little edge in there. But the edge is starting around here. So it seems like I went a little bit high with those guys, but I think it should work fine. Let's do this. And I'm just like adding some in-betweens. You see, like it seems like the scale I used before was too big. I'm just breaking up those forms a little further. Let's do that. And then certain times it's hard to see from an angle here in ZBrush, and then you have to spin around. Just because of my shader, you know, it's like a little shiny in there. It's like sometimes it completely hides everything. Depending right here, right? It's hard to see. From here, it's easier. So yeah, it's gonna be like this constant search for a balance, you know. It's like in the most important part is gonna be those transitions, you know. It's like adding the pores is it's cool and everything, and adding like the other layers on top of the pores is even cooler because you're gonna get more and more breakup, and it's gonna look more and more natural. But then adding those transitions correctly, those actually sell it, you know. Especially like around the eyes and areas like that, because one thing that catches your eye straight away is when you have like pores in areas that are not supposed to have pores, you know. So you have pores on top of the lips or pores right under the eyelids, right? Like right, the eye bags gonna have those pores all in there, you know. It's like it catches your eyes like, oh, that's weird. They're not supposed to be there. So it's like working those areas of transition. It's always very important. So around here, let's a few more around there. I'm gonna make this area a bit denser as well, because it looks a little bit too spread out. So again, like I can add some in-betweens. Let's do a little bit higher intensity. So I'm gonna add some of them here to break up this pattern. In the same spirit of, you know, it's like reaching for the next ones, like, so you kind of like, you pull the mouse or the tablet pen just enough to actually spread them so they can actually try to communicate with the next one, like the neighbor in there. So like in the same spirit, trying to break this up. So you still keep the kind of like skin feel to it, but a little bit more broken up. Again, like if you start like too small, then it's kind of like, man, how can you fix that, right? But if you start with them big, at least you have this option to actually add some in-betweens and get things to work, you know. And for the most part, your renders, probably you're gonna render something like from a certain distance like that, and you're gonna be completely fine, right? Now, when this becomes more important is when you start like doing stuff like close-up shots, you know. It's like to show off like all the beautiful work you guys did. You're gonna do like close-up shots like that. And then if it's not, you know, the scale is not correct or stuff is not working, then you can tell straight away. But other than that, if it's just like for a, you know, full head and shoulder shot, it's not even going to be that important, I guess. You know, it's like if you have enough breakup, if all the maps are in place, and you know, it's like the specular is being broken up in the correct way, you should be able to get away with a lot in there. But if you are trying to do stuff like for, you know, it's like super high res prints and stuff like that, which is my intention, you know, it's like some of those models are going to revisit and tweak a few things here and there. Like in her case, I think the lip gloss can use some work in there, and then eventually do some bigger prints, you know. I don't have any prints of any of my work in the house, so I maybe like could use some of that, you know, maybe 3D print some of those models as well. That would be cool. I do have a 3D print of the Stan Winston that this company that does like those 3D prints in color. They actually asked me for it, and they printed. They had like at I think it was at SIGGRAPH or someplace like that, and they sent me the model, which looks pretty nice. I have like a bigger version and a smaller version of it, but and I 3D printed my Hitchcock, like that sketch I did, like a 2-night sketch. So I have that 3D printed, but I made a promise to myself that 3D print like all my models, like everything I can, because the printer was in the garage for years, man, a Form 2. And it's just like, I managed to not use it and keep the resin in place, like in the resin tank. So it leaked, made a gigantic mess, you know? And then just when I started doing some work in the garage this year, because we decided to put a little home gym in there because you cannot go to the gym with this whole pandemic thing. Then I took the opportunity to actually clean up. So I cleaned it up, ordered some new parts with the Formlabs, and they sent me some stuff for free. Actually, some pieces in there are very nice. And then I fixed it. So I did some prints, and it's working great now. So the intention is to actually get some of those models and print just for the sake of printing. You know, it's like I have this thing about being too precious about stuff I'm doing, and it's never good enough, and I keep pushing it, and then the next day I think it sucks, you know, and I'm never happy with anything. And then that's why I don't print it, because I know I'm gonna be like, oh man, that's a waste of material. A waste of material is to leave in the garage and let it leak, you know, that's a waste of material. So I have to stop being a wuss and just start printing stuff, you know. And a lot of times I see 3D prints that look amazing, and you look at the 3D models don't look that great, you know. It's just like this thing about having a physical piece in front of you, right? I mean, like even at work, we have so many props from old movies and stuff, and they look so great, you know. It's like because they are physical and you can see it, but sculpture-wise, sometimes they are not that great sculptures, you know. But that's why I think like it would be very nice to have a lot of stuff printed just for the sake of it. At least I have a little collection. And at the end, I think I might change my mind and think that they don't suck too much once you have them, you know, in physical form. So I think that's gonna make me happy. But I have to see, because the only one I did this Hitchcock, I really like the way it came out, you know. And the sketch is just like a simple sketch, like a 2-day sketch, and it's not even like the likeness is not even quite there, but it looks great as a physical piece, you know. So I think it's that's a great advantage that like practical artists have over us, you know. It's like they always have the perfect lighting. Even if it's just like the suckiest possible light, it's a real light that you're using, you know. It's like we're trying to simulate stuff and do everything we can to look real. And someone who works with practical effects, you know, it's just like put the freaking thing in there. It looks real because it is real. So that's the one thing that they don't need to fight, right?
Chris.
Yes.
Have you seen Landis Fields' prints?
Oh yeah, Landis is my colleague at ILM. Yeah.
Oh yeah, his prints. Those things are crazy.
Yeah, dude. He is great, man. He used to work at Lucasfilm Animation with me, and then I moved to ILM, and he stayed there for a while at Lucasfilm Animation, and then a couple of years later he landed the job at ILM, and then he took off, man. Like he got the supervision very fast. He's really good hard surface modeler.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I saw his stuff, man. And the thing is, like, he's involved with 3D printing like forever. All those companies send him stuff, you know. It's like free printers to test and stuff. So there was a point I think he had a bunch in his house. I don't know how many he has now.
He reached out to me. I used to work for a 3D printing company.
Oh, cool, man.
Like 3 or 4 years ago. To get things printed. I worked on a machine that could print like 6 feet tall on a business day.
Wow, that's amazing.
It didn't work out, but that's the only reason I know about that guy.
Yeah, he's like, and then there's Joe Knoll as well, which is like barely famous, right? the guy who actually programmed Photoshop with his brother. So he's like one of the icons at ILM, and he's a freaking genius, man. And he got, at some point, he called me to his office to show, because one thing that we did in the past, like before this pandemic, is to actually, there's a lot of people who are very passionate about like personal projects, and John is one of them, you know. The guy is like old school. He's there like for a long time, and he loves projects, man. So he does like all this stuff with Arduinos now. He created like a big panel of lights to simulate like this kind of like a panel from a Star Wars ship or something. And at some point he talked to Autodesk, and they managed to get printed for him like a how you call like a zoetrope, right? Like this, I don't know how you call it. That's kind of like that circle full of sculptures like in different positions, and then you flash a light in a certain frequency, and then it basically like looks like an animation, right? So it just like spins and looks like an animation. So he got like those, I think it was like a Velociraptor printed, I don't know, like maybe like 8 inches tall or something like that, each one. And it's a bunch of them. I don't know how many poses, like 30 or something. And then it's this big circle, and then he calls me like in his office, and he has this gigantic piece in there, and then he turns the light off, and then like flashes, you know, it's like, and you see like this Velociraptor running. It was like fucking amazing, man. And the cool thing about working in those places is like the creative people, you know, it's like they come up with some very sweet stuff. And those are some of the sweetest prints I've seen. I was like, they were big, and they're super clean prints too. I don't know who did it, if it was Autodesk themselves or someone else. But it's still like, dude, I'm still like a kid with the 3D printing thing. I barely do any 3D printing. When I do, I'm always amazed, you know. It's like I went to my wife when I did the other day I did a mod for my old GameCube console. And it's to add like SD cards, basically. Like you can play your game from an SD card. So you can basically like get your games, rip them into SD card, and then you can play without having a CD-ROM. Because those CD-ROMs, they go bad over time. So I'm afraid like at some point it would fail. So I was like, yeah, let me just back up the stuff to SD cards. So I did the mod, and then there is a 3D model you can download. So I downloaded the model, 3D printed it, the piece that we replaced like the disc tray, and then painted everything. It looks amazing, right? And then I was telling my wife, as soon as I got out of the machine, I saw like, dude, I had this in the computer minutes ago, and now it's in my hands. How is that even possible, right? So it's like 3D printing is happening forever, man. And I'm still amazed, you know, in the in the thing, like, you know, it's like holding a physical piece from a bunch of zeros and ones. So I was like, what the hell? That's voodoo for me. That's how old I am.
I definitely got sick of I got sick of it after a while because of the chemicals involved.
Oh, you did? You get like actually sick?
Yeah, well, no, just like temporarily, maybe for like a half hour or an hour, but you know, like 4 years of doing that with all the chemicals, I just like, this can't be healthy.
Yeah, dude. And the thing is, like, it's a little, I don't know how tested those things are, right? It's kind of like still kind of new, and every company comes up with their own formula for the chemicals.
Yeah, and proprietary ones.
Yeah, so we don't have access to what's going on with them. And then everybody swears, right, that everything it's completely okay for you. Just like the pharmaceutical industry tells you everything is good. And then meanwhile, they pay like billions of dollars like in lawsuits. But yeah, it's you never know, man. You know, it's like I have them in the garage right now. And I'm, you know, when I'm printing stuff, I try to keep the garage open just in case. But at some point, I was tempted to have it here in the office, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Unless I have like an enclosure for it, and then put like a duct with a fan, basically like pushing everything out of the window. But I would not take the chance. It smells dangerous for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I did some of that in there. So I'm gonna do some of the other ones now. So I'm gonna start doing like some blending right around here in the internal part. And then I'm gonna do some of the the horizontal lines here. So I'm still symmetrical at this point, and it should be okay for now. Oops, let's just do a little carving right here. Let's do that. So I'm gonna start like doing some of them. And then I can cut with some more diagonal ones coming from the side, almost like pulling from the side in here. So, and then obviously just I can use some clay build up right in between to help to break up those lines as well and inflate some of them. Just get some more of that. Again, like if I do too many of those in this situation here, it's gonna look like it's more dried and stretched. So I'm gonna have to be careful with it. And then I can just pull some of them from time to time. And being so, you know, it's like the thing about like when I did the class with the old lady, I went to town, right? You can see like if you're watching the videos, I mean, like I went to town with the details, just like not being too precious about it, because I mean, you can get away with murder with when you're sculpting older people. Because I mean, like it's just like everything's part of the history in the skin. But then if you're trying to keep things subtle, for example, like modeling someone young, right? Then things are a little bit trickier, because it's a matter of like doing this first pass and then seeing how things render. And then once things are rendered, it's like, okay, now I know that that's way too little. I need to really increase the depth in here. And then you can go and do another pass, you know. But it's good that you have like kind of like a subtle pass like that anyway, which can be like a good base for anything you're gonna do after. Now it's starting to blend from the sides. So we're gonna start pulling some of that. Let's get some of that going from the top right there. And then crossing as well is good, right? You can just cross over it to get a little bit more of that organic feel. It's been a while since I modeled a hard surface, man. I'm just like doing this for work right now, and it's tricky when you don't do it very often, you know. It's just like you get a little rusty with it. But today I managed to do a lot of work with it. But yeah, I started when I first started at ILM. I got the job as a creature modeler, and funny enough, when I got there the first day, they didn't have any creature work for me. They said like, oh, you know, the window for creature stuff, I mean, like we have everybody busy already doing the creatures. But, you know, I have this movie, Transformers, here, if you want to work on it. And I was like, oh, that would be cool. So do you do hard surface? I was like, actually, no. I know the theory behind it because I did modeling before. I modeled props and stuff, right? Like for my own personal work. But in a professional environment, I never did. So don't know about that. And my supervisor was Dave Fogler back in the day. He was a great guy. He was he worked in the model shop, and he's no longer at ILM. He retired actually from ILM. He's living in London, I believe. And so he said, like, do you mind doing a test? Because we have a bunch of characters in here. I was like, sure. Then he gave me a few, like he gave me just like a head for one of those very annoying twins, if you remember, like in the Revenge of the Fallen, the second Transformers. There's those very annoying twins, like there's a green and a orange one. And then he gave me like the head of the green guy first, the one that has very like toothy guys. It's kind of like they're Jar Jar Binks of Transformers, right? They're super annoying. And so he gave me that one, and I was like, okay, let's try that. So I modeled it. It took me a few days to deliver like the head of it, and then like 5 days or 6. And then he came by and he was like, oh, that looks awesome. You want to do the other one? So he gave me the orange guy. So now I modeled the face of the orange guy as well. was like, oh, that looks great. So here are the bodies, you know, it's like someone started the bodies, but it's not finished. So can you model the rest of it and finish those bodies? Like, sure. So I finished the bodies, and he gave me Sideswipe. And then basically like that's what I did for that. And then for the following itself, Jun Sung, the guy who modeled Davy Jones, right? He's an excellent like organic modeler, but he didn't do a lot of hard surface. But the guy's so good he can do anything. So he started. He modeled the face for the fall, and then I had to help with the body stuff. So we got it finished. But yeah, like over time, and like since I started doing that, every single Transformers they call me to do something. So I have like some work done for all Transformers after the first one. So the first one I didn't do any work. I wasn't at ILM yet. But then after that, like I did a lot of hard surface. There's a point that I had much more hard surface work than organic work done. But I think now it kind of reverses because I've been there for like, what, 12, 13 years. And then over time, I managed to do more organic stuff, like a bunch of characters for Rango, and then King Kong, and the creatures for King Kong, the main creature in there. The Jumbo character for we call it Jumbo, is that giant flying eels for the first Avengers. You know, it's like they look like giant whales, and they have like part mechanical and part organic. So I modeled those guys. Help with the Hulk as well, with detail of the skin. So yeah, over time I managed to build my portfolio to a lot of organic stuff. But I started with hard surface, man. So it's kind of like after all this time not doing any hard surface, you know, it get rusty. But then within a few hours, you're just like, oh yeah, I remember how to do this stuff. It's okay, you know. And it's good to refresh your brain too. You know, it's like you get too much into the organic, and then all of a sudden, like, yeah, it's not bad to do some mechanical stuff. But then you miss it, you know, it's like right after you're just like, oh man, I miss doing more organic. But now with those classes, I mean, like I have both, right? So that's what moves me, you know, to do my personal work here while teaching you guys, and then go back and do some hard surface. It's all good.
Chris, what kind of what kind of concept art do you get for something hard surface?
Oh man, it's all over the place. I mean, like it's better now, you know, because we get guys like Vitaly Bugarov, you know, all those guys who actually are good modelers as well. So they can actually deliver a mass model that has a lot in there. So at the end of the day, with the new concept artists working right now, many times you're basically like you're retopologizing a lot of stuff, you know, it's not even putting a lot of modeling in it anymore. But back in the day with Transformers was basically like a rough kind of concept, you know. You would get like a nice concept from the front, and then, or maybe like 3/4 just to have an idea about the character. And then sometimes get like some good concept for the back, but most of the time, no concept for the back whatsoever. So you would have to make up the design as you went. And that was for basically like all the modelers in there, you know. It's like you get it and kind of like come up with ideas on your own. And then you present to the director, they see the turntable, and they sometimes say like, oh, that looks great, let's keep going with it. And sometimes like, yeah, the back doesn't quite look good. So instead of a jet, can you put this or whatever, you know? So it's cool because the kind of project that you definitely have some more freedom to create stuff, because there's so many parts, man. It's like your eye gets so lost with those things that, you know, it's like the director probably not going to be picky with everything. But at the same time, sometimes it's the opposite, you know. Sometimes you do the character exactly like the concept, and then which is approved already, and then all of a sudden the director comes in and says like it needs more complexity, you know, because now from the close up, it's not giving the impression of big scale. So just like, can you add more crap to it? And it was like, sure. Then you go to the parts library, you know, it's like pick a bunch of parts and then find a way to organize them so it looks convincing, you know. But the funny thing about the Transformers thing is that, you know, the first questions that you ask as a newbie is like, okay, so should I make everything, you know, to fit perfectly, you know, in place? So when you rotate, it transforms and everything. And then the answer back in the day was like, no, just make it look awesome. Just make it look really good. And then the rigger is going to figure it out. And then that's basically, you know, the riggers are the magicians behind Transformers, man. Those guys. There was a Japanese guy, I forgot his name. He did a lot of the first Transformers, and he was the guy actually in charge of solving those puzzles. You know, it's like he would deliver the model, and then he would like sometimes like, dude, yeah, I'm a magician, but I cannot do, you know, that kind of stuff. So please give me more parts in here so I have some more stuff to work with. And then he would always find a way to make things work, you know. Very important, those riggers in our lives.
Chris,
yes.
Do you have any suggestion for somebody who is working in the film, in the TV show to switch to film? Because like TV show is very fast, and most places I have applied, like they usually, I think, they are not very interested in hiring people who have worked on TV shows because of the speed and the detail. Because like TV shows is just like a very short turnaround.
Yes.
And not much of details. And I was wondering if there is anything usually like companies like ILM look for.
I would say like the speed. I mean, like in production, like it used to be like you know, slower. I would say, you know, it's like we would take our sweet time sometimes with Transformers. You know, it's like take months to deliver a character and everything. But because of the competition, you know, it's like things got shorter and shorter. So, you know, seems like I'm not talking for ILM basically because, you know, I'm not saying details here, otherwise I get in trouble with NDAs. But this is the overall impression that I have everywhere, is that this the global approach now, you know, it's like all those companies, you know, got much faster now. And the thing is, there's this whole thing about the gaming industry as well, right? Like the guys are cranking a lot of models as well, and then sometimes the modeler is doing the texturing as well, and just like Pixar. I mean, like Pixar is the guys who actually animate actually rig the models as well. You know, it's like there's a lot of crossover. But back to your question, I mean, like I would not be able to provide you kind of like a, you know, some kind of like tip about that, because I'm kind of stuck in the same spot like for 13 years. So kind of like away from the loop, you know. But I would say like at a place like ILM, they definitely going to look for someone who has a strong portfolio in a sense of like beautiful forms, you know. It's like you are able to deliver something that looks really cool at the end. And then in terms of speed, it's something that you can build over time, you know. It's like if you're in a production, you can build speed over time. But I think they're gonna look more for the quality than the speed itself, you know. But obviously, if later on you get the job and you're in the middle of the production and then you're dragging the whole production because you're the slowest of the bunch, you know, then probably like they're not gonna like that. But definitely they're gonna look for the quality more than anything else, you know.
Yeah, but because the quality of TV shows usually is lower because of the turnaround is faster. So most of my works are not, I feel like I can't even put them on my demo reel.
Oh, I see what you mean. Well, in that case, I'm going to tell you what I did. Basically, like when I got my first gig in visual effects, I didn't have like any job done for anything else, right? I came from nowhere. I was a banker in Brazil. And then when I got my job at ILM, I asked them, like, do you have any problem if I bring my personal work? And they said, no, I would love to see your personal work. And that's what I did. I went there. I didn't have like a video portfolio or anything, like a demo reel. I didn't have a demo reel. I had like a bunch of images of my work and some animation as well, saved in a hard drive in my laptop. So I went there, they plugged my laptop into a projector, and then they watched the whole thing. And I explained you know, what I did for each one of the pieces and everything. And I got the job, you know. It's like, so you don't need like a strong professional portfolio to get a job in those places. I would say like if you have a strong a personal portfolio, I think you're probably going to get a better chance almost, because it shows your passion for that and shows that you're a creative person who can actually solve problems. You know, it's like problem solving is a very, you know, kind of underrated kind of thing. Like it's worth like gold, you know. It's like in a production environment, you can be like a kick-ass artist, and then if they give you something that they don't have quite figured out how to do, and ask your opinion about like how you would solve that, and you have no idea either, you know. And meanwhile, there's someone who is maybe like not the greatest artist, but it's the guy who, you know, chop know how to solve the problems. You know, it's like this guy sometimes has more value, you know, someone who is smart to get things done. So if you have a combination of both, you know, it's like if you have a good work and good problem solving, they probably can see that in your personal work. So I would say like do more personal work, you know, use this class, for example, like you're paying for like a whole month of doing this, you know, so take this as your project, and then don't expect, for example, like to finish your project at the end of the class. Basically like you keep working on it, and then let's say if you set up a target for yourself, you know, it's like I'm gonna have like the best possible model I can have by like 2 months from now. So basically like even after the class is over, continue to watch the videos, you know, continue to do the you know, it's like the research on your own in there. And then if you have a kick-ass model in 2 months, you can start with that, you know. It's like, and you're gonna see that once you get like this little pipeline here embedded in your brain, the next one becomes easier, you know. It's like because you can reuse a bunch of things. And then at the end, you know, it's like if you set up, let's say like 4 months from now, I want to have 2 full portraits or something, you know. Or if you are like in full body stuff, like, oh, 4 months from now, I want to have like a full model, like body, face, everything with accessories, or maybe like 6 months from now. And then you work towards that goal, you know, because at the end of the day, you're going to get a job for how good you are. And they're not going to be, you know, it's like, oh, what production did you work for? They didn't do that for me, you know.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Obviously, like having like your name in productions, it just shows that you're a professional, that you can work in a like a, you know, it's like in a production environment with other people. So that means like you're not an ass, right? So that's good. Like when you have like this thing in your portfolio, like, oh, I worked in this many movies and stuff. But in terms of like getting the job and getting the foot, you know, inside the door, it's really a matter of like, you know, how good, I would say, like your personal work is first, and then the production stuff, you know, they're going to figure it out sooner or later. I mean, like, that's why they do, like, instead of hiring people these days, like this is like across the board, many studios do the same. Instead of like hiring the people point blank, like for a full-time job, they do like temporary contracts, right? So they do like 6 months contracts. And then in 6 months, they test you and they see like, okay, all those questions you're asking, you know, it's like about speed and all this stuff, they're going to probably be answered within that window, you know? So in 6 months, they're going to figure it out if you're being like truthful with stuff you said, you know, it's like in your resume, you know, or they're going to figure it out like, oh, this guy was actually, he was saying that he knew how to do that, but then now he's in production and he cannot do that. So, you know, that's not a good candidate. And that happens, man. I've seen this happening in different companies, you know. Basically, like the guy gets the job, you know, using someone's model or something, right?
Oh, and, yeah, I have seen.
yeah. And then gets in there, and then like first couple of weeks, you know, it's like the supervisor starts like, oh, who hired this guy? I mean, like, so that happens. So it's very easy to burn your bridges in this industry if you're lying, you know, and it is very easy to detect if you work, like, try to imagine like you're getting like into a place which is like full of talented people, right? Like everybody kicks ass in that environment, and those guys are doing this like for 20, 30 years, and then you're gonna try to trick them that you can do, but you actually can't. They're gonna see straight away, you know. So yeah. Let's save this one. Let's see. This one's going to be the symmetrical one. I'm going to bring my asymmetrical model, but the thing is, I think there are certain parts I actually like what I did. So let's try to do with the morph target first. Let's do here morph target, delete, store, then import. Let's see the asymmetrical one. Oh, it's not bad. So now I have my asymmetrical back, right? And I have like the possibility of switching back to the symmetrical anytime I need to model you know, it's like those things to save myself some time, like the lips and everything. So I'm gonna keep asymmetrical for now. I'm gonna have to fix that little bump in the mouth again that I fixed before, but I'm gonna have to fix for good now. Let's try that around there. And I'm gonna keep the teeth visible so I know what I'm doing there. But yeah, I had fixed that little curvature before. Yeah, I gotta tell you, man, like every single door that ever opened to me professionally was because of my personal work. And it's like, it's, you know, the whole thing about being in Brazil, like working in the bank, like this was like 2003, working in a bank in Brazil, trying to actually get out of the bank by doing some freelance work for a local company, like a TV commercials and stuff. I was doing some 3D for some commercials in there. And then I entered that challenge, the CG Talk challenge. Back in the day was 2003 Machine Flash challenge, right? And I was completely like, I'm not gonna say I was unknown because I was getting some front pages for a short movie that I was making back in the day. I started doing a short movie and I got some front pages on CG Talk for it, like some animations I did. And then I entered that Machine Flash challenge, right? And so when so basically I was doing, I don't remember like the order exactly, but I was posting like those screenshots for my short movie. I had an animation I posted of this plumber head bouncing around. And that one caught the attention of someone in the United States. His name is Steve Odekirk. He was the director for Kung Pao, right? Kung Pao, that little funny movie, Kung Fu. And he did all those series with the thumbs that talked, you know, with the little faces in the thumbs, like Thumbtanic and Thumb Wars and all that stuff. So Steve Odekirk saw my animation at CG Talk back in the day. And then he contacted me, sent me an email. And then they start, you know, with the whole process of the visa and everything. And then meanwhile, I start doing that challenge for CG Talk, like the Machine Flash challenge. So everything happened at the same time. I got the job, like they start my visa process. And then as soon as I got to the United States, by that time I had finished my entry for the challenge. So I got to the United States. I was awarded the first prize, right? So I got the workstation. Got was a $10,000 workstation, was a box workstation back in the day. And then, so when I got to the United States, I was pretty much set. I had a new computer, you know, a nice workstation to work back in the day. And then I was finally employed in doing this. That was my dream forever, to come to the United States and work in this industry. And then, but the thing is, like, I didn't speak a word of English in 2004. So I started learning. I mean, like I could write, like to communicate with people, like through the forums, because I always posting in forums, but I didn't speak any English. So it was tough, man. Like, you know, the first 6 months, like not being able to communicate that much. But yeah, so things are interesting. There's lots of sacrifices involved, obviously, but at the end of the day, you know, life is too short, man. If you start like, you know, thinking too much about stuff instead of going for it. But yeah, it's kind of a little bit of my humble beginnings in there, right? But yeah, the funny thing is that once I had this Machine Flash challenge done, I was already in the United States working at Automation Studios. And then a friend was working at Cafe Effects, and then they contacted me because of the Machine Flash challenge. They contacted me to work for them. So I got the job in there. So I left Automation and I went there. And then while I was there at Cafe Effects, a few years in, like 3 years in, I got contacted by someone from Lucas, who actually, she was a recruiter at Automation. My first job, she was a recruiter in there. And then she was following actually my personal work online, and I got some other front pages and stuff. And then she contacted me, and I was like, oh, you want to work for us and blah, blah. So that's basically like, that was my third job ever in the industry for Lucas. And then that's basically where I stay to this day. But always like personal work, man. And it was funny because like after I finished that one in 2004, I entered again in 2005 for the Master and Servant challenge, and I won it again. And that's another computer. And then they wanted to give me another workstation. And I said, can you guys switch, because you have this sweet laptop can you give me the laptop instead of the workstation? And they said, sure. So they gave me the laptop. And I remember the laptop was a brick, man. It was a box laptop, and it was super heavy. And it was kind of like a workstation, one of the first like fast workstations for graphics, but in the form of laptop. And that thing was a brick. And yeah, it worked for a while, but then it stopped working after some time. I was using it for gaming most of the time. But yeah, personal work, every time, all the doors.
Hey, Chris, can I ask you an industry-related question?
Yeah.
I was just curious. I finished my first job last year. I was up in Montreal with RealFX. We were working on Scoob.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Both me and, ironically, my friends who are still up there are kind of confused on the state of the industry with the whole pandemic thing going on. Because, like, for example, with Scoob, I left at the end of basically modeling production on it when my contract ran out. You know, it had just a few more months to go through lighting. And my friends, even who stayed along, they don't really have any gauge on how well things did because nothing is going to theaters. So like,
I see what you mean. Yeah.
There's no box office numbers for our movie. And those are really the only connections I had. And so I was just kind of curious, how is, you know, the industry doing with the whole pandemic? Because I really have no clue. I can't tell from the applications that I send out, really.
I think like the companies still have, you know, I'm not going to say like a ton of work, but they definitely have plenty of work. You know, it's like I would say like they're still very busy. But the difference now is that a lot of stuff that used to go to the movie theaters, right, is ending up like on Netflix and based like streaming. So I think like the jobs are still there, but it's just like like you said, I mean, like it's hard to see how a certain project is doing other than, you know, checking how certain Netflix thing is doing. I was like, I remember like when we did The Irishman, for example, was kind of like the same deal, you know, it was the first one that was a big movie, but kind of like for Netflix, you know. So it is a tricky one, man. What concerns me the most is the situation of, you know, it's like those tax breaks paradises, you know, which is basically like, it's very sad to me to see like that the whole industry of visual effects started in California because of George Lucas. So the whole thing was starting here, and then see the situation in California for so many years, you know, it's like all the jobs, you know, going to other centers that have like much cheaper production costs, you know, it's like London, Singapore, Vancouver, because of the tax breaks. And at the same time, that's like a great deal for any company wanting to do those movies. It's not a great deal for the artists themselves because those are all like very expensive centers to live at. And that's one of the reasons that the companies are getting the tax breaks in the first place, is to actually become attractive, you know. So basically like they need to bring jobs to that region. So they get like, for example, a rebate of like 40-50% of the total cost of the movie. So what company would not take that, right? Like, especially like companies like those big studios and distribution places, you know, it's like they are looking for the profits, like, you know, spend the least amount of money, make the most profit. So it's kind of like it's a sucky industry right now, like very different from what we had when I started. But when I started, it was already in decline. You know, it was like in 2004, it was definitely already in decline. And then it never got better, you know. It's like there's a lot of stuff involved, but definitely the tax breaks kill us, you know, because there's no way to compete. So definitely going to go. So I would say like people nowadays, like looking for jobs in this industry, the best bet would be going to London, you know, and then obviously if you want to go to Singapore and you know, Montreal, I think like at some point, first was Vancouver, then became Montreal. I don't know how it is now, if it's back to Vancouver. But
it's
yeah,
Montreal is, I think, still quite a tech hub. I mean, okay, so like the building that we were in at RealFX was evidently, they told us this history, the largest brick building in North America. And it is gigantic.
Yeah.
And in that building, we had RealFX, we had Unity, we had Uber Greenlight.
Oh, in the same building?
all in the same building.
Wow.
And then a whole slew of other tech companies with ridiculous names that I couldn't even tell what they did because their name is so crazy, but definitely a tech company. And then that was just in our building. And then other parts of Montreal, I'd be friends working for the Mill and MPC and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely know what you mean though. That was not the cheapest place to live.
I know, man. Yeah. Yeah, it's a funny thing because the companies celebrate that because it's definitely like a great deal for them. But for artists, man, it's like man, so many times artists like they make like a huge sacrifice, and then and if you're young and hungry for that kind of stuff, you want to have like he was saying just now, it's like you want to have something in your portfolio that can become attractive to the next employer. And then sometimes you make all those sacrifices, like it's like I'm gonna do it much cheaper than I can afford. For example, I'm gonna go and move to a very expensive center, and then I'm gonna live like in a studio, maybe like share with someone. But then at least I'm like working on something cool, and then I can have my name in the credits. But then after like a year doing that in that rhythm, it's like sometimes working a lot of overtime and stuff, and then you realize that your like power of like buying is not that great, so you cannot even afford like some of equipment to do your own personal work, or the rent is like absurd, like we have in San Francisco here. It's pretty absurd, and it's very well known that San Francisco is like this area here, Bay Area, is like probably the most expensive in the country. So it is very tricky, man. Sometimes it's like if you have a close friend and it's like and you guys are discussing salaries or something, sometimes people get surprised that you say like that you make a certain amount of money, but then all of a sudden that amount of money is not that much because of the place where you live, and it is very tricky, man. And what I was about to say is that it's like you burn fast and you burn bright and burn fast, right? Like when you're young, because you get to those the situations, and then you do everything you can to help the company and to help yourself with your portfolio. But then after a year, man, like you're paying all that money, you're not saving anything, you're completely burned out because of the crazy hours, and then you just like, you know what, I'm out of this. And then people move to other places. It's like I've seen people moving, for example, from visual effects straight to like Google and Facebook. If you're in this area here, the Bay Area, a lot of people I know move either to Google or Facebook, like because they pay, it's like they pay good money. They're very well well known for paying well, and you stay here and kind of like a little bit more possible to maintain yourself. But it is tricky, man. Every single one of those places I mentioned, like from London to Singapore to Vancouver, it's like San Francisco, they are all expensive places, and those are the places where most of the studios are. So the artists are always in a pickle when it comes like to this kind of stuff. That's the thing I mentioned. It's like we don't do this for the to become rich. I would say, like, you don't get rich in this industry. You can get some prestige, right? Like working cool productions and work your way up and become a supervisor or something. But in terms of making loads of money, you don't. I mean, it's just like it is what it is. So I'm just talking to you guys, and I'm just like tweaking like basically the secondary forms. You can see like I'm building a little bit more of the bone structuring here, and try to correct some of the weirdness, like from the bottom. For example, I was looking at the eyelids and they didn't have a nice curvature. I want to make sure that they are curving correctly. I'm gonna bring the edge of the lid a little bit forward as well. So it looks a little bit better, but interesting because like from the side, normally when I sculpt this area right here close to the caruncula, I try to go back here. For example, I bring this area back a little bit to have a little bit of that depth. But in his case, I noticed like they have this area a little bit more stretched. So I'm gonna have to check if I find from other angles what that stretch looks like from other angles. But I definitely need a little bit more thickness to the eyelid from the bottom at least. Yeah, you see like the angle of the lid it's not very convincing at this point, in my opinion. Look, it's kind of like too forward. And even this, this angle doesn't look good. So I'm gonna have to bring it back. Probably like select, let's do a soft selection of this area right around here. And soft select this whole area. And then do a couple of double clicks here just to smooth it out. Like that. Then invert it. And then let's see if we can just hide this mask. Oh, I'm still in HD. I didn't realize that. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna just bring it back. Actually, softer. Control H. Let's do softer mask like that. And Control H again. Let's bring it back. I want to just make sure I have a little bit more angle for the eye. You see, like I like to have this kind of like offset between the eyeball and the eyelid. It looks more convincing, you know. It's like it looks like something is actually popping out. But then obviously I'm gonna have to fix this relationship here and how thick it is. But even in the bottom one, you see, like I don't have that offset. There's a weird angle in there. So I'm gonna try to fix that as well. Let's bring this one down a little bit, fix that angle. And then for the bottom one, I'm gonna try to select mostly, see, like if I go from an angle like this, look, the eyeball is right there, but this is not making any sense. I mean, like it's tense against what, right? So it's the kind of stuff like you have to look from different angles and then start fixing it, fixing this offset and adding a little bit of a plane in there as well. So it looks more like it's sitting on top of it. Let's see from this angle. Now there's a little bit more of angle now. And then here, I have that bulge that's kind of justified because of the squint, but I'm probably gonna have to have more volume underneath here as well. So let's switch to the non-HD. Let's go out of HD. And that's just gonna build up a little bit more. I mentioned before, you know, it's like the other class that I was still working on those forms around the eyes. Like they're definitely like they need a ton of work. Let's go back here. Just gonna remove maybe this, either remove a little bit of this bag in here or build up the lower part a little bit more. So let me check some reference here first. See if I can figure it out. So tricky, man. Like every time I look, and I love this picture of him, but at the same time, he is like younger here, you know? So he's still different. It's a different face. So his teeth is still kind of like in the slightly different position. Not a lot of wrinkles and everything. Then you get to this, right? Like, and then he's older right there. Oh yeah, gonna be tricky. This one is a cool one to see the shape of the cranium. Look at that. It's a very low res, but it's kind of like his temporalis line. It's kind of like, it's almost like a double, right? So he has the forehead in there, and then let's try to get a little bit of that in my model since I'm looking for this. And that's the problem about those classes, right? Like I don't have like a straight line, so I can keep like jumping from place to place. But at least you know, the intention was always like to be like the fly on the wall thing was to actually, you know, you guys watching how I approach those problems, you know, like in my own models, and that's basically what it is. A little messy, you know, but yeah, I can get results with this mess, but it's definitely a little bit messy. Just gonna do it. I'm gonna put a little bit more of his temporalis line in here, and then it is tricky because it's a little bit inflated as well from that angle. Just gonna build that one in there, and also he has this line that splits right around here. So I'm gonna just build a little bit stronger, pull around there, and then there's a depression that happens right around here. So it goes down here and then goes up around here. So I had that kind of correct before. Let's just bring this one down a little bit, get a little bit more triangular. And then that part. So it's like splitting that little line in there a little bit more. And then let's see what we can do with this temporalis, just carving a little bit, but without going too strong, because he definitely has some volumes on the side here. It's such a tricky combination of shapes, you know? And then I get into that mode that, okay, I'm looking at him through different ages. Just imagine, like, if you're trying to model a reference of someone, right? Like Robert De Niro, someone like that, a famous actor, right? And then you're looking at all those pictures you find on the internet. Some of those pictures, he's like 50, some he's 30, some he's 60, right? Some he's 20. And then there's a lot going on with his face that changes a lot, right? Now, you look at the guy like this who has like a very premature aging happening to his entire body, right? So probably like a picture that's just like 1 year away from each other or 2 years away from each other, there's a huge difference in terms of how much, for example, like of the bone structure changed. You know, it's like in terms of, for example, the bone structure grew and the fat tissue dissolved, basically. So you're seeing more and more of his underneath structure, right? So there's a lot going on with a little guy like that. So that's why when I see those references, you know, it's like some of them, he looks so different from one to another. And he might be just like a few years, you know, like maybe 2 years difference, and he's already very different. It's kind of like the Benjamin Buttons thing, right? Like it's just like never stops changing. It's fascinating and sad at the same time. So yeah, I think that helps. And then there is a line kind of like in the middle in here, but I'm afraid to build it because I have the impression that that's coming from a large vein that he has in there. So instead of like adding too much of this line right here, I'm gonna try to keep a little simpler for now. And you see like the volumes right now, they're very, very subtle, right? I have like, if I start like showing you guys, for example, I have this line here splitting right there, right? So I have my temporalis line coming like that. Divide a little bit more like that. And then I have this one coming that way, right? I have those lines coming this way. But everything is very, very subtle. But I mean, like, as I get more and more familiar with the character itself, then I can start like, okay, I feel confident enough that I need to build up these areas much stronger, right? That's why I started with the cranium so small before, and then I was like, yeah, he needs much more volume in the cranium now that I'm familiar with it. This search, you know, like for those pieces of the puzzle, they are kind of like my favorite part. And I'm definitely not that guy who actually nails all the proportions first, like in the kind of like a very low res mesh with all the proportions in place first before you start doing the detail, you know. I kind of like start sketching freely, like you saw like in the first class, right? Freely sketching to get the feel of the whole thing without being too technical. And then I start like solving the anatomical problems like as I go. But I'm kind of like a little bit jealous of people who actually nail like proportion wise from the get-go. You know, it's like they have a easier time, for example, abstracting everything and just seeing, for example, primary forms only. So they just like eliminate everything and then only see primary forms. I cannot do that. I can only see primary and secondary, and you know, secondary and tertiary all together, because I'm looking at the facial expression, I'm looking at the personality, and other things like that. You know, I'm not looking exactly just to the, you know, to the sculptural forms. I'm actually looking for the soul from the get-go, and then that actually gives me some advantages in terms of what I can do to give life to a character like very fast, right? Like in terms of getting some personality to it. But I get more into trouble, for example, like with, you know, fixing primary and secondary forms like for a longer time instead of like nailing everything from the get-go. So it's a give and take kind of situation, you know. It's like I'm pretty sure some of you guys gonna fall into both categories, you know. It's like some of you can be better at like blocking everything first, and then some of you are gonna be better like actually communicating those emotions, you know. So it's, yeah, it's we are all different for sure. Still very, very tricky, you know. It's like sometimes I try to add a little bit more volume around the orbital in here, and I get it to look like interesting to me personally, And then I look at the reference and I was like, oh man, I have to eliminate some of that. I added too much already. And I'm trying to go slow, you know, it's just like everything looks so subtle. Just like Adam was saying the other day, you know, the forms are so subtle, especially when it comes like to those wrinkles and everything. That's always like, you know, it's like, yeah, it is a tricky type of character. Yeah, let's get to some more wrinkling here. Let's do a, right there. So yeah, like the plan is to do let's talk about the reviews a little bit. So I just sent the email right before the class, so you guys should have it. And the way it's gonna work is basically like you show up in the morning or at night. I would say like in the morning, that's basically what most people do. So if some of you guys can come like, for example, at night, it's more likely you're gonna have more, you know, more space, I would say. But the way it works, I don't have like a plan about like the order, right? Like how, you know, what's the order? How are we going to start it? Sometimes in the past I would do like by alphabetical order and then reverse alphabetical order and all that stuff. But then at some point we just decided to do like in order of arrival. So basically like if you guys come early, you know, it's like to the meeting, you probably can see each other in there when you're logged in. And then you just like, if you can keep tab on that, you know, I would appreciate that. So basically that's the way it's going to work. And then if some of you guys have like a better, you know, it's better for you to come at night, for example, the same time we have the classes in here, then those are normally a little bit more empty, you know, but in the morning, normally like most of the people comes in the morning and then gets it done. And it takes a long time sometimes, you know, like I said, sometimes it takes me like 15, 20 minutes per person, depending on what I'm doing there. And then sometimes if you're there and there's a large group of people, you're probably going to be waiting for hours to get your review, right? So I think one thing we can try to do, maybe so you're not tortured with that, is maybe you can arrive and then maybe see who was before you. And then you put the number, you know, something like that, like a second, third, whatever. And then that way, let's say like if you were like number 10 in the list, right? And then I'm still doing like number 2 or something like that, you know, you're going to be waiting a long ass time. So you have an option to either stick around and then follow the reviews for the other people, which can be very useful. You know, it's like sometimes a lot of the questions you have are solved because some mistakes and problems are common. Or you can just like, you know, take a nap or go do something, you know, play some video game or do some errands and then come back when you're ready, you know, so you don't need to stay there all the time because it can be a little bit much, you know, it's like if you never have those reviews, they can go for a long time. All right, so let's do this. I'm still very timid, man. Like with the forms, I was looking at Adam's model. He's going to town with the forms. You know, it's like it looks super cool, and I'm still like being careful. You know, it's like, oh, should I add more of the you know, there's like a medical lining here, and then I added, and I was like, oh, but then it looks strong. You know, so I was kind of like trying to be kind of careful with stuff, but at the same time, like the same personality is gonna start showing up once I take courage, you know, as I can do a little bit stronger and then, you know, really put those forms to work for me. For now, he's looking all right. The part that's important to me, I think it's this, you know, the life, and that's going to come from the eyes for the most part, right? So it's next week. Let me check. Let me check when you're going to be talking about eyes. I'm going to give you like a preview of what's coming next week. So next week you're gonna have, so the poly painting is gonna be on Monday. Oh, the eye is gonna come on Tuesday. Okay, cool. So poly painting, we're gonna be just doing color for the whole class on Monday, and then on Tuesday we're gonna be exploring the eyes, and then on Wednesday possibly the teeth, and that puts a little fire under my butt because I have to do some more work in this teeth here, tweak my shaders and the textures to be able to present something that looks nicer, you know, to you guys and and give you some tips. But what I was saying is that like what matters the most to me is like to find out his character, and I think it's starting to get there just by putting the eyes in there. Like some seeing how he can feel in general, and then other than that's just like refinements, right? Refinements everywhere, and then keep iterating on it. But yeah, I think like finding the life and the character itself, I think is the most important part. And then from that point on, we just work on the technical stuff to work for that, and not the opposite, basically.
Hey, Chris?
Yes.
Have you ever merged multiple geometry HG displacement maps after export?
Merging, what you mean, like
to get a larger area.
Yes.
So unless I just don't understand this fully yet, I'm thinking because I'm not getting the full surface area.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
If I could do it once and then export the map and then have a second file and do it again in a different area and then merge those displacement maps.
I wonder. Yeah, I would say like the best approach would be to export just in a single scoop, but I would do like, do the same thing you're doing. For example, we start with, for example, the upper part of the face, do the displacement in there, and then create another area lower with a little overlap so you can see what you did before, so you can do like an easy transition in there. And then just go like, until you fill up the whole thing and then export the maps. Because I know what you mean. Like in theory, you could, it's like just select, let's say if I go outside here, outside of my 3D model to my, from my HD. And then let's say if you have like two, let's do this correctly here. So I'm gonna go and do so let's do like a let's see, polygroups. And now I have my auto groups, UV groups. So this one is gonna split just UDIMs. So let's say you have 3 UDIMs. So you're just gonna click this one and you can work in HD just in this one. And you finish the work in that one, and then export the map in that, just for that specific UDIM. It doesn't quite work like that. I mean, like it's going to export the maps for all of them, right? But then you can save that with a different name, use, generate the next tile, and then generate another set, and then rename that to match, right? And save in another place so you don't overwrite. But every time you're generating, they're always going to generate like the 3 maps, no matter what. So that's why, like, I don't know if it's any advantage, like to export them separate and combine later, or simply use them to sculpt this area, switch, sculpt this area as well, switch, sculpt this area, and then export the maps at the end when everything is done,
Yeah, I haven't. So I've exported successfully the first time and rendered in Maya to make sure it works.
Is it working for you?
Yeah, it works well. I just I screwed it up so many times today, like 4 or 5 times. It ended up being the issue I had last night was basically a corrupt ZBrush file where the the OBJs weren't matching.
Oh yeah.
In the translation, it was moving every single time. So I just reprojected the file, and it's working fine now. I haven't, once I leave in HD, I haven't gone back to it yet. So I'm a little nervous about getting back to that high definition point.
Oh, I see, man. No, it's like this whole thing about reprojecting, that's sometimes is the only way to fix the problem, I noticed that ZBrush sometimes go very wacky with certain things. And I would agree. I mean, like I would do the same, it's like just reproject it. And I would say like this reprojected version, if it's a clean model with a topology it's fine, I don't think you should have any problem with a HD from now on, but I might be optimistic. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. But so yes, today we started like doing this work in the lips in here. I'm probably going to be working more in it, obviously, because, you know, there's a lot to be done. There's still like the nose stuff, but it's going to be a back and forth, you know. It's like during those classes are going to be jumping, you know, just like today. Look at the preview. The preview didn't used to do that. There's an artifact in the preview of the HD now. If I go HD, that disappears, but in the preview it shows like that, which is weird. The preview is when you do press A outside of the model, and then it kind of generates that. So look at that. It looks good. This one worked, but look at that. It's busted right there, right? But then if you go HD, it's fine. So I don't know. They did something, I think, with the HD. So I hope I always have this idea about like compiling a list of stuff. I think I'm gonna do this soon, man, to tell you the truth, because now we have, I would say like what, like close to, I think it's like about 500 students I had in those classes. And then 500 students using HD is a good chunk of people to add pressure to Pixelogic. So I would say like, I think I'm gonna release like a little poll at some point in our group and ask for suggestions about HD. So you guys can start thinking about it, you know. I think it's a good time to do that actually, now with the pandemic. You guys can start thinking about it, you know, it's like what would be ideal for the HD to become like the tool, you know? So would that be like preserving the UV so you can actually bring maps and then work with them inside of HD? That would be one. The other one would be layers, right? We could have layers with HD. The thing about the layers in ZBrush in general is that I never trusted them that much because they are always funky. Since the first version, it's kind of like it's this kind of like pseudo Photoshop kind of thing, but you know, it busts, sometimes it busts the color, you know, if you have polypaint assigned. There was all kinds of problems. So I think like the layers in ZBrush is the kind of stuff that's a strong candidate to be like based like reprogrammed, you know, almost like from scratch and build something that's more like Mudbox, maybe something like that, that works more effectively, you know. But I definitely gonna create like some kind of poll, you know, because I really want to send something to a fair. There is one thing that I told my students the other time, is that like when I was at the summit, ZBrush 2018, if you watch my summit presentation, I talk about HD a lot, and I talk about those techniques to create the portraits and everything. And then at the end of the presentation, when I was about to leave the room, Ofer, which is based like he's the guy, right? Like the genius behind ZBrush. He's an awesome dude, and he's super, super cool too. And he called me in a corner. He said, you know, you talk about all the HD stuff, and there's a lot we can do about it. We can actually, you know, when that was programmed, that was 32 bits. So there's a lot of that old code in there. But now that's 464, we have plenty of room to do much more with HD geometry. But I need to get together with you, and you know, you can tell me what kind of features you would be able to, you know, suggest for us to start working on. And the thing is, like, he actually mentioned, like, he lives like 20 minutes from my house, basically. He lives in Tiburon, I live here in San Rafael. And he said, one day you come with your wife, let's have dinner together with, you know, with my family, and then we talk about that stuff. And that kind of like was up in the air. I never made it happen, you know. But maybe now with the pandemic, it's not going to happen anyway. But maybe if you have some leverage with actual requests, you know, like some precise requests about HD, I think I could bring that to him like as an email or something, you know, as I can say, here is basically like after 1 year teaching those classes using HD geometry, that's the conclusion that me and the students we came with, you know, and use that, you know, it's kind of like as an argument to, you know, not an argument because he's sold. I mean, like he wants to change things, but he needs to know what we need, you know. That's the point we are at this point. So yeah, I'm gonna do that, and probably like next week, come up with a little poll in there, and then hopefully get like most of the people in the group to contribute with it, and try to get the HD geometry to the next level, you know. Like he said, I mean, there's a lot of room for improvement with better technology these days. And I think HD is just like the perfect tool if you fix a few things, you know. It's just like so much power, like in terms of speed and everything. Yeah, for example, like that problem that you had the other day, you know, it's like being able to sculpt just in the little circle. Even ask him about that, you know. It's like, what's up with that? I have enough polygons to open an area that's 35 millions. Why I'm getting only 20? just like with the teeth the other day I showed, right? Why am I getting just 10 million polygons if the face gives me 35? What's the deal with that, right? And I think they can do some voodoo magic because those guys are pretty genius with this stuff. So yeah, gonna keep talking about it. All right, guys, gonna let you go and keep cranking with your models. I mean, like you saw that what I had to do with my model. I start with the pores pretty spread out, right? And now I'm kind of like in the process of adding in-betweens just because the scale was not perfect, right? I didn't like the scale. But all of this stuff is like workable, you know. It's like if you start with bigger pores and then you can always do that stuff, you know. It's like go back a few resolutions and smooth things out and come back to the highest so you get things a little bit more even. You can disguise a lot of stuff by using those micro wrinkles, and especially that one that's like that little circular motion, right? For those micro wrinkles that I use here in the nose, right? Stuff like that. You can use that to fill up all those areas. For example, like around the head. When I get to this area here of the head, I'm not going to be putting like pores everywhere. I'm probably going to be doing like a lot of that, you know. It's like just doing like, get this skin random here and then go to town with something like this, you know. But this is too strong now, obviously. But I can do like add a little bit less intensity to it, like that. And then just start like really mixing them. Now I need a little bit more. So that's basically what I did for my models. Obviously, most of the time, the models are not bald. So I have to, you know, to be careful with that. But in this case, even in this case, I think I can get away with just having a lot of this detail. So it's not like you need pores everywhere, right? You can actually do away with a lot of, you know, just like random kind of leathery patterns like that. I use that for the nose. I use for the rest of the head in here. I use that for the ear as well. Not inside because we're going to be sculpting that stuff. I'm going to show in one of those next classes. But, you know, either you're doing like a kind of like a more directional in those areas, like around the eyes in here, right? Or you're going more towards the side of the face, and then you can do like a circular motion and just fill those areas with a little bit more of a random pattern. Remember that we are still in the process of blocking what the look of the skin is, but there is a lot more stuff you're going to add, like from pimples and bruises and all that stuff that I keep mentioning, right? So a lot of this stuff is going to disappear in the, you know, in the ocean of detail we're going to have at the end. So like, yeah, you see, like at this point, it's kind of like not the most like the previous thing, right? But it works. I mean, like this kind of stuff works once you have the subsurface scattering, and especially like the specular all on top. But yeah, keep working on your models, keep adding more stuff in there. Be careful with the size of the pores, make sure that they are in the scale, right? I'm gonna be working on my nose here and around the eye some more tonight. And then, yeah, and then post some renders maybe between today and tomorrow, post more renders so you can see what my progress is. But yeah, it's coming along slowly but surely. Guys, have a great day, great night, and we see you. I see you on Saturday, and then we keep talking in the group.
Sure.
Thank you,
Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
Can you show your there was the wrinkle brush that you had made and you had tweaked the alpha.
Uh-huh.
Can we show it how you did like how you made it look like a dam standard, but from the standard brush?
Oh, okay, yeah. So basically, like it's you go to your standard brush, get like the default one, just clone it first, like under the brush, so you have just like so you're not messing with the original one. And then for the alpha, I'm using 39. It's this one here.
Okay.
Yeah. And then for the alpha curvature, I'm just like clicking right in the middle and then bring it. It doesn't need to be super pointy like this. It can be something around there. Right. And then the last piece is basically like just the lazy mouse. If you're using lazy mouse, make sure that the lazy step is at 0.02. So otherwise you're gonna get some trailing, lots of dots and stuff. And then, let's see, that's just my RGB. Let's do this one. Let's keep an intensity of like 12 or something like that. And then you get that, right? So you can actually carve things. And then obviously save it and have it like saved in your startup, so you can have it always available in here. or you can do like you know, put some place in the under the light box, you know, under one of those folders in ZBrush, and then just pick from there.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Let's see. I think I had like a question here in this chat. You're referring to stop motion. Oh, okay, yeah, that was a long time ago. So, sorry, I missed it, Andrew. Referring to stop motion. What was the question again? Like what I was talking about? I was talking about the practical stuff. Yeah, I think that was it, right? Yeah, I mean, like practical stuff, man. Like it can be lights and lights and raptors. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like a. It's not stop motion. It's just like a how you call, like a zoetrope. Zoetrope. How you say that? Zoetrope. There's a name for it. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, like that. So I don't know how you say it. So it's a zoetrope. So that's basically what it is. So he had something like this, but not the real stop motion. It was just let's see. So it spins, right? And then it flashes, and then you get something like that. But yeah, it was all like with raptors, you know, like it was pretty cool, man. Those 3D printed raptors. Yeah. All right, guys, let you go. See you.
See you.
Bye. Have a good one.